How's it going, everybody? This is Andrew Krause here. Today is going to be another time where I take a popular song and I try to break it down so that you can better understand the notes in the piece and how you could apply some of these music theory principles to your own work. So, without further ado, let's get to it. Here we are in Logic Pro. Um, like the last song I looked at, I've recreated this instrumental. Again, I'm not focused on making the mix, just like you've heard, or even replicating the sounds. I'm really focused on trying to figure out what notes are in it, what's the drum groove, and what scale do those notes come from, and how can we understand how this music makes sense or how it works. Cool. So let's take a listen. Nice. It's a pretty repetitive instrumental, so we can stop there. Cool. So let's talk about this now. As a reference today, the chords in this song are basically two chords the whole time. It's a C major 7 into an F major 7. Let's look at a scale and where those notes come from. So in that scale, we have these white keys. All white keys. That means no accidentals. And essentially, this is our most basic major scale that there is. Let's listen to it. That's C, E, F, G, A, B, and C. Cool. So, if you've ever heard people sing Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Ti, Do, they're singing, that's called solfege, and that is set to a major scale. Um, so, most of us have heard a major scale, whether we know what it's called or not. So let's show you these major sevenths. Now, in the last video I did, that is breaking down the Scots by Travis Scott and Kid Cudi. We saw the chords in that song were just minor triads. So that is 3 notes chords. A seventh note chord technically has 4 notes. We have the first, the third, major third, that's an E, C, E, the fifth, G, and then the major seventh, which is a B. A major seventh is always going to be 1 note away from the octave or where you repeat the chord. So if we go to F, we skip our scale degrees, we get this. Now you'll actually notice that all of these notes come from our scale. If I kept C major going, we see all of those notes. F is in our key, A is in our key, C is in our key, and E is in our key. So for F, F is the 1 of the chord, A is the 3, C is the 5th, and E is the major 7th. Cool, let's get rid of these notes and let's just hear what those chords sound like. Nice. A little high up. Let's put them down. Nice. You might already be able to hear the song. So that melody is pretty simple. The melody notes are G, A, G, and then a different note at the end. Cool. So, and the note at the end basically foreshadows the 7th of the next chord. So if I were to write out the melody the next time, we're going to come down to a B and then back to this chord. Cool. So all together, that sounds like this. So let me just restate what I was saying. The last note of this melody, that note comes from the next chord. Even though we have E in our C major chord, E is a special note to the F major 7. It is the major 7. And then in the C chord, the B is a special note. That's our major 7. So it's almost like the melody foreshadows the chord, if you want to think about it that way. That sounds like this. And it basically repeats. Cool. So let's go back into the track and let's look at the drum rhythm. So we've got our melodic stuff and our drums. So that's just our chords. Cool. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the simplest drum beat that I can really even think of. It's basically what in my book I call the standard rock beat that people learn. The kick is on beat 1 and 3. Our snare is on beat 2 and 4. It's as standard as it gets. Our cymbals, our hi-hat, it's a closed hi-hat, is on an 8th note rhythm. However, if you look at this, you'll notice that we have some swing. If you're in Logic or whatever DAW you're in, chances are you have a quantized feature and it has the word swing built into it. Now, we're using 8th notes, and you'll notice that I can recreate that swing. As I move the swing out, you'll see the MIDI clips down here start to slide. I don't know if you see that. But cool, and I had this swing set to like 16 or something like that, and it sounds like this. Not even that much. Now, what is swing? Swing is basically when the second note of whatever speed we're swinging, so this is 8th note, so every other 8th note is slightly back in time. If we zoom into that, that means this one is behind time, that one's in time, this one's late, that one's in time. Now, if we were talking about 16th note swing, the same thing would be true, only every other 16th note would be behind in time. Cool. And we can program that pretty quickly. Nice. So finally, the part that I think is really like the money line or the money instrument in the song Circles. This it's the most sophisticated, and it really gives the song its drive, why we want to dance to it. Cool. So let's first listen to it. Nice. My loop was a little off there. But cool, let's break it down. So the first note that we start on is a C. That makes sense because our chords are C major 7s. The next 2 measures, when the chord changes to an F major 7, we go up to an F. Not that surprising. Now, rhythmically speaking, we've got some cool stuff happening the second time. We would say that there's syncopation happening, and what that means is that the accent of where the important beat is typically was here. That is the downbeat. That's like where our kick and snare are happening. But by the bass moving to the later 8th notes, it gives it some cool like push and pull with the drummer, which sounds really cool. And we call that phenomenon syncopation. And it's most music that's fun to dance to has a lot of syncopation or syncopated rhythms in there. Cool. Then finally, these other notes are fills that happen in the first 2 measures. We're basically doing what you could think of as a melodic pattern. This first pattern we're playing, all of these notes actually come from the C major 7. So we're going C, B, G. No notes are out of the actual chord there. But the second time we do get a note out of chord and we get an F walking down. Now, F is actually, it's in our scale that we already talked about. It's the next note or the next root note of the chord we're using. So that's another reason it works. And then finally, I would say this melody has some sort of sequential motion. What that means is like a pattern that's applied to a scale. So we're starting high and moving down the scale, and then we start a little bit lower in the scale and move down it, which is where the sequence comes from. Cool. So that's basically the nuts and bolts of Circles by Post Malone. Let's just listen to that groove one last time. Cool. So yeah, why did I want to do this song? It's so simple. Well, that's part of the reason I wanted to do it. One, music theory just it sounds complicated. The goal of my text and the goal of these videos is to really show you that music theory, although it can get quite complicated, is not super complicated with regards to popular music. So, in other words, most of the music that people consume on a daily basis across the planet is relatively simple. This is important to know because if you go on to write music in the computer, um, just remember that it's not about the complexity of everything going on. It's really about the potentially the complexity of one thing. In this song, our bass line is complex. The other stuff is quite straightforward. In fact, when most things in a song are straightforward, that lends itself to one of the instruments doing something a little bit more sophisticated. Yeah, and then finally, don't think it has to be complicated to be a chart-topping hit. This song certainly made, I'm sure, Post Malone, his label, and his team a lot of money, and cheers to that. Must feel good. So yeah, anyway, feel free to email me. My book will be linked below. Hit the subscribe and notification bell if you want to stay up on when I'm putting out some new videos to keep brushing up on your music theory. If you have any questions, you know where to find me. Till next time.